What if hybrid technology becomes even more advanced than electric vehicles in 2025 to 2026? Imagine driving a car that uses both electricity and gasoline, but still doesn't drain your wallet. Even more surprising, its range could be so impressive that it almost feels impossible. Yet that's exactly the direction BYD seems to be heading. The industry isn't buzzing just because of a new car launch. The excitement is about a completely new powertrain, a system that could redefine the traditional rules of mileage, performance, and driving range. Whether it's EV leaders like Tesla or hybrid giants like Toyota, there's one thing everyone is watching closely. If BYD's new setup works as intended, it could completely change the competitive landscape. In today's video, we'll look at what BYD is introducing, why this technology is so different, and how it could influence the price, range, and overall technology of the next car you buy. We'll also discuss whether BYD has developed an engine system that could challenge traditional gasoline engines in the EV era, and why this move is creating waves across the global automotive market. And there's one more interesting point. At the end of the video, we'll reveal the single reason that might make BYD more dangerous to competitors than any other company in the industry. So make sure you stay with us until the end. Before we dive into BYD's latest move, let's briefly look at the company's journey. Today, BYD is known as one of the biggest car manufacturers in the world. But the company didn't originally start by building cars. Back in 1995, BYD began as a small battery manufacturing company in Shenzhen, China. At that time, its main focus was producing rechargeable batteries. The demand for batteries in mobile phones and electronic devices was growing rapidly, and BYD quickly recognized this opportunity. Over time, the company became extremely skilled at improving battery technology. They didn't just produce batteries, they studied every detail of how batteries worked. This is where BYD's true strength began to develop, a deep understanding of energy management and control. While many companies simply bought batteries from suppliers and used them, BYD was actually manufacturing them and mastering the science behind them. This gave BYD a major advantage from the very beginning. They already had strong control over the most critical part of any electric vehicle, its power source. Then came a turning point in 2003. That was the year BYD made a bold decision. Instead of only producing batteries, they would start manufacturing complete vehicles. Entering the automotive industry wasn't easy at that time because many established car manufacturers already dominated the global market. However, BYD approached things differently. Most car companies focused on building vehicles and importing batteries from suppliers. BYD had a different idea. Why not build the most important part of the vehicle, the battery, themselves? Their first car, the BYD F3, wasn't a luxury model or packed with cutting-edge technology. It was a simple, affordable, and reliable sedan designed for everyday drivers. But the real turning point came later, when BYD realized that the future of transportation wouldn't rely solely on petrol or diesel. In 2008, the company made a bold move that caught the attention of the entire automotive industry. BYD launched the F3DM, one of the world's first plug-in hybrid vehicles. At a time when most companies were still trying to figure out the future of electric cars, BYD took a different path by combining petrol and electric power. This decision clearly showed their long-term vision. The future wouldn't rely on just one technology. It would be about combining different power sources in smarter ways. Over time, BYD began integrating its deep experience in battery manufacturing with vehicle production. Instead of relying on outside suppliers, they started developing the entire system themselves. The battery, the motor, the control units, everything was built in-house. This strategy gradually strengthened BYD's position in both the electric and hybrid vehicle markets. While other automakers depended heavily on external battery suppliers, BYD produced its own. While competitors sourced motors from other companies, BYD built theirs internally. The advantage was clear. BYD had complete control over the most important part of a modern vehicle: the power system. Think of it this way. If someone builds only the body of a machine but borrows the heart from someone else, their control will always be limited. But if they build both the body and the heart themselves, they can design the entire system exactly the way they want. And that's exactly what BYD did. Over time, they expanded into electric vehicles, refined their hybrid technology, and continued developing their energy systems. Today, BYD is no longer just a car manufacturer. BYD has now evolved beyond being just a car manufacturer. It has become an energy-focused company that understands and controls nearly every component that powers a vehicle. Because of this deep expertise, BYD's presence in both the electric vehicle and hybrid markets continues to grow stronger. Their journey is not only about selling cars, it's about mastering energy and using it efficiently. Perhaps that's the reason why the entire automotive industry pays close attention whenever BYD makes a new move. One of the biggest turning points in BYD's story came when the company placed a major bet on hybrid technology. At that time, the world was increasingly talking about electric vehicles as the future of transportation. However, the reality on the ground was quite different. While EVs sounded promising, not every country, city, or customer was ready to fully adopt them. Charging stations were still limited in many places. Long-distance travel remained a concern for drivers, and many people were hesitant to completely abandon petrol-powered cars. Recognizing this gap, BYD decided not to rely solely on electric vehicles. Instead, they took a bold step toward plug-in hybrid technology. This decision marked the beginning of a major shift in their strategy. BYD realized that the world didn't simply need two extreme choices: petrol cars or fully electric vehicles. In many regions, people needed something that could work today while also preparing them for the future. That's where plug-in hybrids came in. These vehicles allow drivers to use electric power for short daily trips, while still having a petrol engine available for longer journeys. The idea was simple but powerful. For daily city driving, the car could run on electricity, saving fuel and reducing emissions. And when the battery runs low or the trip becomes longer, the engine can take over. This approach solved one of the biggest concerns people had about electric vehicles: the fear of running out of battery power. For a long time, hybrid vehicles were often seen as just a temporary step, a middle solution until the world fully transitioned to electric cars. But BYD looked at it from a completely different perspective. Instead of seeing hybrids as a compromise, they presented them as a strong, practical, and realistic solution. The truth is that every country's situation is different. In many places, charging infrastructure is still developing. Electricity supply can be unreliable in certain regions. And for many consumers, switching entirely to electric vehicles right away isn't practical. In these conditions, plug-in hybrids act as a bridge between traditional petrol cars and fully electric vehicles. You can think of them as a gradual transition. Even if someone can't move to an EV today, a hybrid allows them to move closer to that future. It reduces fuel consumption, lowers emissions, and makes the shift toward electric driving much easier. BYD introduced this concept through its dual mode, or DM, hybrid system. With this system, the company designed vehicles that could offer an experience very similar to an electric car during everyday driving, while still keeping the engine ready for situations where extra power or range is needed. This approach gave customers confidence. They didn't have to depend entirely on a single technology. Instead, they could enjoy the benefits of both. This strategy worked especially well in markets where EV adoption was slower. Instead of seeing hybrids as a compromise, many customers viewed them as a smart and practical choice. Over time, it became clear that hybrid vehicles were not just a temporary solution. In many countries, they could actually become the most practical option for years to come, especially in places where the transition to electric vehicles would take longer. BYD recognized this opportunity much earlier than many of its competitors. Instead of creating a rivalry between electric vehicles and hybrids, BYD chose to develop both technologies together, and that decision became a major turning point for the company. While many automakers focused entirely on an all-electric future, BYD focused on solving today's real-world challenges. They chose a path that works in the present while also preparing for the future. In doing so, hybrids became not just a middle option, but the most practical one. This is where BYD's real strengths began to show. Now let's talk about the core idea behind BYD's fifth-generation DM hybrid system, because this is where things become truly interesting. At first glance, it might seem like just another hybrid setup. There's an engine, an electric motor, and a battery, the basic components you would expect in any hybrid vehicle. But the real difference isn't simply in having these components. The difference lies in how they work together. Many hybrid vehicles include both an engine and a motor, but their coordination isn't always efficient. Sometimes the engine ends up doing more work than necessary. Other times, the electric motor isn't used to its full potential. As a result, a significant amount of energy can be wasted. BYD recognized that if the engine, motor, and battery could be perfectly synchronized, the vehicle could achieve far greater efficiency while using less energy. This idea became the foundation of BYD's fifth-generation DM hybrid system. In this system, the engine, motor, and battery are not treated as separate components working independently. Instead, they are designed to operate as a fully coordinated team. When the car is driving at low speeds in the city, it mainly runs on the electric motor. This helps reduce fuel consumption and also makes the driving experience smoother and quieter. But the moment more power is needed, such as during quick acceleration or when driving at highway speeds, the engine instantly comes into action and works together with the motor. The key point here is that the engine and motor don't compete with each other. Instead, they support and complement each other. In this system, the engine doesn't only help move the vehicle. It can also charge the battery whenever necessary. When the engine is operating at its most efficient level, it can generate power to recharge the battery rather than sending all the energy directly to the wheels. Later, the motor can use that stored energy when needed. Another important feature is energy recovery. When the car slows down or the driver applies the brakes, energy that would normally be wasted as heat is captured and stored back in the battery. Because of this, the energy cycle keeps flowing continuously and efficiently. Behind this entire system is a smart control unit that constantly decides whether the engine or the electric motor should handle most of the work. If the road is flat and the vehicle is moving steadily, the motor usually takes charge. If sudden power is required, the engine immediately joins in. And if there's a good opportunity to recharge the battery, the engine can step in for that purpose as well. This intelligent coordination ensures that energy is used as efficiently as possible in every driving situation. BYD has refined this system so well that energy loss has been greatly reduced. In older systems, a significant amount of energy would simply disappear as heat or unnecessary mechanical movement. Now, much more of that energy is either used to move the vehicle or stored in the battery. The result is clear: lower fuel consumption and a longer driving range. What makes this even better is that the driver doesn't need to understand or manage any of this. The entire process happens automatically in the background. The system itself decides which component should work at any given moment. The driver simply drives the car while the technology quietly optimizes everything. That's why BYD's fifth-generation DM system isn't just a minor upgrade. It represents a major shift in how hybrid systems operate. It's not only about producing more power, but about using power in the smartest and most efficient way at the right time. Now let's simplify the numbers that have made BYD's new system so impressive. You might hear that the engine has a thermal efficiency of 46.06%, which sounds very technical at first. But the meaning is actually quite simple. When a petrol engine burns fuel, not all of that energy goes toward moving the car. A large portion of the energy is usually lost as heat. This is why traditional vehicles consume more fuel without using all of its potential. A thermal efficiency of 46.06% means that almost half of the fuel's energy is actually being used to move the vehicle forward. In older engines, much of that energy was simply wasted as heat. Now, a much larger portion of the fuel's energy is reaching the wheels and helping the car move. Think of it this way. In the past, a significant amount of petrol was wasted. With this system, that same fuel is used much more effectively. Less heat is lost, less energy is wasted, and more power goes into driving the vehicle. Now let's look at the second important number. 2.9 liters per 100 kilometers. This means the car needs only 2.9 liters of fuel to travel 100 kilometers. In simple terms, it can cover a longer distance while using far less fuel. Previously, covering long distances required a large amount of fuel. With this level of efficiency, the same journey can now be completed with much less. This directly benefits the driver's budget. Fuel costs decrease, refueling stops become less frequent, and longer trips become easier. When you combine these two factors, the advantage becomes clear. The engine uses less fuel, and a larger percentage of that fuel is actually used to power the car. That means more energy is reaching the wheels, and less is being wasted. This is exactly where the pressure on competitors begins. If a car can travel farther while using less fuel, customers spend less money. If less energy is wasted, the vehicle's performance improves. And if the engine operates more efficiently, emissions are reduced. In other words, the benefits appear in three areas at once: better mileage, stronger performance, and lower environmental impact. For other companies, the challenge now is to match this level of efficiency. Otherwise, the comparison becomes very simple. A more advanced and efficient vehicle versus a less efficient one. And it's easy to imagine which option most customers will choose. Now let's move to another crucial factor, the battery advantage, which might actually be BYD's most powerful weapon. So far, we've discussed the engine and the hybrid system as a whole. But in any hybrid or electric vehicle, the real strength doesn't come only from the engine. About half of a hybrid or electric vehicle's real power actually comes from the battery. And this is where the story of BYD's Blade battery begins. When people think about electric or hybrid vehicles, one of their biggest concerns is battery safety. News reports about overheating, excessive heat, or sudden battery failures often make drivers nervous. BYD understood this concern very well. That's why the company designed the Blade battery to be far more stable and safer during operation. Traditional batteries usually contain cells packed together in thick blocks. The Blade battery, however, uses a completely different design. Its cells are long and thin, arranged in a blade-like structure. This design allows heat to spread out more evenly and escape more easily instead of getting trapped inside the battery. Because of this, the battery's temperature stays balanced, allowing it to operate safely and reliably for longer periods. In simple terms, this improves thermal stability. That means the battery is less likely to become unstable due to heat. Whether the weather is extremely hot or very cold, the battery continues to perform in a stable and predictable way. This stability directly affects the driving experience. The vehicle's performance remains consistent, and there is a much lower risk of sudden drops in power. That's why the blade battery is considered important, not just for safety, but also for dependable performance. When a battery operates at a stable temperature, energy can be used more efficiently. This improves both the vehicle's overall efficiency and its long-term reliability. However, BYD's real strength doesn't lie only in the design of the battery itself. Their biggest advantage comes from the overall strategy they follow, something known as vertical integration. In simple terms, this means the company doesn't just produce the battery. It also develops the vehicle's powertrain and many other key components on its own. Most automakers usually purchase batteries, motors, and electronic systems from different suppliers. This approach often increases costs and makes it harder to perfectly coordinate all the parts. BYD works differently. The company produces its own batteries, builds its own powertrain systems, and controls a large part of its supply chain. This means that the most important components of the vehicle are developed under a single vision and within one integrated system. When the battery and the powertrain are designed together on the same platform, their coordination becomes far more precise. As a result, energy is used more efficiently and waste is reduced. Another major advantage of this strategy is cost control. Since the company doesn't need to rely heavily on outside suppliers for critical components, many additional costs in the supply chain are eliminated. This allows BYD to keep prices relatively affordable, even while offering advanced technology. At the same time, the company also maintains stronger quality control because most components are developed within its own ecosystem. You can think of it this way. If the heart, brain, and power system of a vehicle all come from different sources, coordination will always be complicated. But when everything is designed together with the same vision, the entire system becomes more balanced, efficient, and reliable. This is exactly the path BYD has chosen. The blade battery is not just a technological innovation. It's part of a larger system that connects everything, from the battery itself to the vehicle's driving performance. Less heat, greater stability, and full control over the entire system. This combination is what truly sets BYD apart. Now let's talk about something that often becomes an even bigger challenge than technology itself: price. Electric and hybrid vehicles have been widely discussed for years, but the reality is that many people who want to buy them still can't. The reason is simple: high prices. No matter how advanced a vehicle is, if it's too expensive for the average buyer, it becomes difficult for it to achieve mass adoption. This is another area where BYD's strategy stands out. From the beginning, BYD understood that if electric and hybrid vehicles were going to reach the mainstream market, the company needed to focus not only on technology, but also on affordability. So they chose a different approach, building vehicles that are both affordable and packed with modern features. These cars include advanced technology, but their prices are not so high that they discourage buyers. This strategy is extremely important because for a long time, the biggest obstacle to EV adoption hasn't been charging infrastructure or driving range. It has been the initial cost. Many drivers wanted to switch from petrol or diesel cars to electric vehicles, but the high purchase price stopped them. BYD recognized this issue early and began developing vehicles that provide essential features while keeping costs under control. When customers are able to get advanced technology at a reasonable price, such as longer driving range, smart driving systems, and comfortable interiors, the decision to switch becomes much easier. For many customers, this kind of vehicle can feel like the right choice, not just for the environment, but also for their personal budget. And this is exactly where real change in the market begins. When affordable electric or hybrid vehicles enter the market, comparisons become much simpler for buyers. customers start looking closely at what they are getting for the price they pay. If one company offers fewer features at a higher price, it naturally begins to face more pressure from competitors. This is why such a strategy can be challenging for brands like Tesla, which have long positioned themselves in the premium segment. When lower-cost alternatives become available, a much larger group of customers starts considering those options. As a result, other companies may be forced to rethink their pricing strategies. In many ways, the competition shifts from being purely about technology to being about overall value. The key question becomes, who can offer more features and better performance at a lower price? BYD's strategy is not only about attracting customers, it is also influencing the entire automotive industry. When one company offers better technology at a lower price, competitors often have only two choices: reduce their prices or improve their vehicles by adding more features. This naturally increases competition in the market, which ultimately benefits customers by giving them better options. Now let's talk about the global impact. A company truly begins to transform the industry when it expands beyond its home country and starts influencing markets around the world. And this is exactly what BYD has been doing at a rapid pace. Over the past few years, BYD has moved beyond a single domestic market and expanded its presence across multiple regions, including Asia, Europe, and Latin America, and to some extent the Middle East. But this expansion isn't just about selling more vehicles. It's also about offering solutions that match the specific needs of different markets. In many countries where the infrastructure for fully electric vehicles is still developing, hybrids and plug-in hybrids provide a practical alternative. BYD appears to be targeting these markets where customers are still hesitant to switch completely to electric cars. Instead of forcing a full transition, they are offering a solution that works well today while still moving toward a more electric future. For example, in Europe, environmental regulations are becoming stricter every year. Meanwhile, in regions like Southeast Asia and Latin America, affordability and reliability often matter more to buyers. BYD seems to be trying to balance both of these needs, advanced technology on one side and affordable pricing on the other. Because of this, their global expansion looks less like a simple effort to increase sales and more like a carefully planned strategy. When a company enters different markets and adapts to different needs, it naturally begins to influence how competitors operate. This raises an important question. Could this expansion change the strategies of established companies like Tesla or Toyota? As competition grows stronger, many companies may have to reconsider their product strategies. While some automakers are focusing entirely on electric vehicles, demand for hybrids and plug-in hybrids remains strong in many parts of the world. This could reopen the debate about the future of mobility. Instead of a future dominated by just one technology, we might see multiple technologies working together. If this trend continues, the discussion around EVs versus hybrids could change in the coming years. Rather than competing directly, these technologies may simply serve different markets depending on local needs and infrastructure. Between 2026 and 2030, it will be interesting to see how this global expansion evolves and whether it reshapes the strategies of the entire automotive industry. If we look closely at the automotive world today, an intense race is already underway, and BYD is moving forward very quickly. Not long ago, it was known mainly as a battery manufacturer, but today it has become a serious challenger to companies like Tesla, Toyota, and even major Indian automakers. This raises an important question. What exactly is BYD doing differently that allows it to compete with such powerful players? The first reason is simple but powerful. BYD doesn't just build cars, it also produces the most important component inside them, the battery. While companies like Tesla often depend on external suppliers for battery cells, BYD manufactures its own batteries in-house. This gives the company stronger control over both cost and technology. Because of this advantage, BYD can introduce new innovations while still keeping vehicle prices relatively affordable. The second major strength is its focus on hybrid technology. While Tesla relies almost entirely on fully electric vehicles, BYD recognizes that many parts of the world are not yet ready for a complete transition to EVs. In countries like India, for example, charging infrastructure is still developing. In such markets, hybrid vehicles can serve as a practical and realistic solution. This approach also places BYD in an interesting position compared to hybrid leaders like Toyota. The third important factor is pricing. Indian automakers, such as Tata Motors and Mahindra, have long focused on building vehicles that balance cost and practicality. Now, BYD appears to be applying a similar idea on a global scale, offering vehicles packed with modern technology, but priced low enough to attract a broader range of customers. This strategy helps the company enter markets where people want advanced technology, but are unwilling to pay extremely high prices. The fourth part of BYD's strategy is offering different solutions for different markets. Companies like Tesla usually follow a more focused product philosophy centered around fully electric vehicles. BYD, on the other hand, targets a wider range of customers by offering EVs, hybrids, and multiple configurations. This flexible approach could work especially well in markets like India, where customers often consider both fuel efficiency and affordability before making a purchase. While Toyota has built a reputation for reliability and durability, BYD is trying to attract a new generation of buyers by balancing technology with affordability. At the same time, many Indian companies are still primarily focused on the domestic market, while BYD is aggressively expanding across the globe. All of this doesn't necessarily mean that BYD has already overtaken everyone else, but it clearly shows that the company is challenging established players by taking a different path. By trying to balance technology, pricing, and the needs of different markets, BYD is steadily moving forward in this competitive race. And in the coming years, it will be fascinating to see where this race leads. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future updates and important developments from the world of automobiles.